Yes, so welcome to Vasili's Garden, folks. We're talking citrus today. I've had a few emails come through regarding citrus leaf miner. I know it's out of season at the moment, but somehow with those microclimates at home, in the smaller gardens, are showing signs of it still being quite active. We had some earlier on in the season. This is a lemon tree that I've replaced 2 or 3 times in the past due to the fact that, mainly because of rabbits, they ring bark it, and I, keep saying that I'm going to do something about it and never do, so that's my bad. But anyway, I got this one to survive, and this one's actually been attacked too. You'll see it on the other side of the trunk there. It's had a couple of hits by the rabbits trying to ring bark it, but it's kicked on well. It's settled in. We haven't done a lot with the soil as far as preparing it. We've actually just added some organic matter as typical I talk about, our superfood and stuff like that, and that's it, and a couple of liquid feeds. This is a nice, well, it's more protected than most spaces in my garden here, so they've taken off well, in particular the lime tree, and those who've come to the workshops have seen them firsthand on how strong they are. They're only, what, 2.5 years old, these trees, or 3. Excuse me. There's an orange here. Can you see any flowers coming on? Yep, look at this little cluster of flowers down there pushing on. There was an old fruit there, that's gone, but we've got more, actually down here, there's more flowers here. Heaps of flowers coming on everywhere. And over here, and if I look around, I'm sure there'll be plenty of more flowers on the other side. So we're going to get at least a couple of dozen oranges on this tree this coming season. So they flower at different times of the year too, folks. Don't expect them to all flower in springtime. Some of them will flower in winter, as this one is now, and set fruit. And they hold them on till the following season. So a good 6 months to 9 months. Expect that to happen with your citrus trees. Your lemon trees, well, they'll fruit at least twice a year, and you'll have fruit picking off them all the time. We'll get back to the topic of leaf miner, but having a look at this one here, this hasn't been pruned on this side. We've pruned the other side. This needs to be attacked. Now, when it comes to pruning citrus trees, don't cut them back too hard, too fast at once, and don't cut them back all the way to the base, because all you're going to do is get it to sucker up. Cut it short to a couple of nodes above, like that, and hopefully you get not just a growth on it, you get some flowers developing on it. And what I mean by flowers is this. See these flowers developing here? We've got more flowers appearing at the top here. We've even got flowers on these long shoots here on the tips there, because they grow on 6 months, 9-month-old branches like that, and if you don't prune them off, they'll actually flower on the tip there, and as they are doing now, look at this. We've got more flowers coming on here, and I bet you there'll be flowers on this too. So we are going to sacrifice some of the flowers, especially these long ones, and we should have cut it back earlier. We've done the other side, but we may be able to just get it to fruit a little bit, or flower again a little bit on the shorter stems here. So by cutting them short to 2 or 3 nodes, you're not shocking the tree into just shooting back up again and only cutting a few branches. I'm not going to cut them all. I'm going to pick the biggest ones of the lot. Oh, do I sacrifice all these? Yes, I have to. These ones have to come down, folks. That there in particular, we don't need it all the way up there. We'll cut it back down to here, like that. So that's a long one again. And when it comes to the top of this, we got to lose that just below it. I was meant to talk about citrus leaf miner, wasn't I? Well, I'll explain to you what's going to happen now with this tree. We've got flowers there, so we are going to sacrifice these flowers. Otherwise, we're going to have way too many. We're not going to thin the whole plant out because we're going to shock it back into growing again, and that's not what we want. Here, we've got leaf growth, so that's got to be cut right back. See, we've got these little short ones there. They'll possibly fruit for us, but we'll cut this back to about there, and hopefully that will eventually start to flower for us as a short stem rather than a long one. If I was to go and cut the whole tree right back into shape that I'd like it to, I'm going to cause it to react with new growth, which is okay if you're still shaping the tree. But if you're at a stage where you don't want the tree to grow out too much more, you've got to work it slowly back into it. And we've got a few more improvements to do here, which I can do over the next 4 to 6 months. So that will retard the vigor in the tree and promote more flowering as it is at the moment there. And eventually we'll get it nice and flat and open vase shape, or not open vase, but a spalier flat shape, I should say, all over this the framework. What happens with the new growth, or once you've done the prune, is with this new growth, and not so much on the lime tree, but more on the lemon tree, because that's the one that gets infected the most, you're attracting citrus leaf miner, and that little insect will come along and lay its eggs just beneath the skin of the leaf, or the new leaf, so just beneath the surface, that is, and that little larvae will burrow its way through the leaf, leaving a snail-like trail all over that leaf, causing it to deform. That stresses the tree out to the point where it needs to keep growing before it can put fruit on. And if all the new growth is affected, the tree's going to go back into a growth spurt again, which means it's going to put more vigor on it, and then you lose that cycle of fruit. You may get some flowers down below, but nothing where all the new growth is coming from. And if you constantly prune that back, so for example this, if I was to cut that back, that vigor that I've got there, and if I did that completely everywhere, I would have this as a reactive occurrence on my prunes. I would get new growth here, I would get new growth everywhere all over the tree, rather than fruit and flowers, because it needs to have at least 6 months, 9-month-old branches before it starts to flower on that particular branch. So if you prune it hard, expect new growth, expect leaf miner to occur on your plants. How do you control it? Well, some of you have used our CGWS effectively. That's our powder that you mix with water and leaves a white film on it as a shield of armour. Ideal for citrus gall wasp. We've had some great success in controlling it. Be careful with that as well, because when you've got new growth, juvenile leaves like this, especially on the citrus tree, I should say lemon tree. Let's go over there for a second. This won't have any because this has been beaten to death by the weather. And that's why we've got all this weather damage caused on it. Let's see if we've got any leaf miner, because I did see some the other day and I think I picked it off. There was only 1 or 2 leaves. That is weather caused, because the leaves, whilst they were juvenile, they were getting beaten to death by the cold, harsh winds that we had here. And now as they've matured, they've kept on, you can see the damage of it. And that's going to have to get cut off. For example, we're just going to have to cut that off there like that, remove these, and just encourage new vigor on it. Now by doing that, this will put the growth on, and as the weather warms up, because the insect is active in warm weather from 18, 20 degrees plus, and in the microclimates of your backyard will have that sort of environment for it, ideally, no matter what time of the year it is. And we've noticed that the insect is actually adapting to the cooler climates of Victoria, southwest in particular where I am. So you need to make sure to protect it, and the spray is one way. If you find the CGWS spray doesn't work and you've tried horticultural oil as another preventative, as a shield, and that still doesn't work and the insect gets in there, and you've done the citrus leaf miner traps and you hung them up in the plants and it's still, or around the tree, not in the tree, and those traps still don't attract enough and stop it from infecting it, then it leaves you no choice but to cover the tree. Now a young tree like this is quite easy to cover, especially with a framework we have, but if you've got a standalone tree, what you can do is create a framework to cover the tree and put your netting over the top to protect all the new growth. Wait a second, I've just spotted something. Here we are. There we are. Can you see that? Snail-like trail on those leaves there? That's what we're talking about. That's the damage it causes on your leaf. Mainly on the new growth, not so much on the old growth. There must be more on it. If there's one here, there's got to be more of it. So that's what you've got to look out for, and you can't leave it on the tree, because if the insect is active and it's burrowing through, leaving these trails behind, eventually it will mature, emerge, and then reinfest your tree again. So you can't cut these off and just put them in the compost. You literally got to burn them or put them in the black plastic bag, seal it up and solarize it, which basically is bake it out in the sun, bake it in the sun for a number of days, if not weeks. So citrus leaf miner, folks, CGWS as a preventative, or horticultural oil, or the citrus leaf miner traps in the tree. If you find those don't work, then you're going to have to take it to the next level, and that's actually covering your tree with an insect netting over it. And I'm going to show you how to build a framework to do that in tomorrow's segment. Check out our website, vasilisgarden.com. Book yourself into one of our workshops, our Get Ready for Spring gardening workshop, and I'm going to teach you how to make beautiful organic soil to grow all the wonderful veggies and flowers very simply, and hands-on experience as well. From me, Vasili, Maresi.